October 17th, 2017. The last person to see 12-year-old Noah Bennett was Mr. Grayson, the crossing guard at Maple Street Elementary. It was a Tuesday afternoon, unusually warm for mid-October, in the small town of Riverview, Pennsylvania. Noah had waved goodbye as he always did, his red backpack slung over one shoulder, before heading down Elm Street for the 8-block walk home. "See you tomorrow, Mr. G," he'd called, trademark grin flashing beneath his mop of dark brown hair. But Noah never made it home. His mother, Angela Bennett, a nurse at Riverview General, called the police at 4:17 p.m. when Noah hadn't arrived by his usual time of 3:45. By 5:30, officers were canvassing the neighborhood, going door to door with a recent school photo of Noah, a lanky boy with bright blue eyes and a small scar above his right eyebrow from a bicycle accident the previous summer. "He always takes the same route," Angela told Detective Marcus Reyes, her voice cracking as she traced Noah's daily path on a map of the neighborhood. "Elm to Hawthorne, then down Jefferson to our house. It's less than a mile. He's walked it alone since the beginning of the school year." Noah's father, David Bennett, a long-haul truck driver, was in Ohio when he got the call. He immediately turned his rig around, driving through the night to reach home. By the time he arrived the next morning, search parties had combed every inch of Noah's route and the surrounding areas. Police dogs had tracked Noah sent down Elm Street and halfway along Hawthorne before losing it near the corner of Birch Lane, suggesting he'd made it more than halfway home before vanishing. The investigation intensified over the following days. Security footage from a few businesses along the route showed no sign of Noah. No witnesses reported seeing anything unusual that afternoon. Noah's friends at school had no information about alternative plans or secret meetups. His phone, a basic model his parents had given him for emergencies, had last pinged a cell tower consistent with his walk home before going offline. Detective Reyes led the investigation, which quickly expanded to include the FBI's Child Abduction Rapid Deployment Team. The Bennett home became command central, with maps and timelines covering the dining room walls and volunteers cycling through with coffee and sandwiches for the exhausted parents. "We're looking at everyone," Reyes assured the Bennetts 1 week into the search. Known offenders in the area, school employees, neighbors, anyone who might have had contact with Noah. But as days turned to weeks and weeks to months, no credible leads emerged. Noah Bennett had simply vanished in broad daylight on a route he walked daily, in a town where everyone knew everyone else. The red backpack, emblazoned with the Pittsburgh Steelers logo, Noah's favorite team, became a symbol on missing person flyers and social media campaigns. 1 year after Noah's disappearance, the active investigation was scaled back. Detective Reyes remained officially assigned to the case, but most of the task force was reassigned to other matters. The Bennetts established a foundation in Noah's name, offering support to families of other missing children and maintaining a website dedicated to finding their son. Life in Riverview settled into an uneasy new normal. Parents no longer allowed their children to walk home alone. The elementary school installed additional security cameras. Mr. Grayson, the crossing guard who'd been the last to see Noah, retired early, the weight of that final wave goodbye too heavy to bear. For Angela and David Bennett, time seemed suspended. They kept Noah's room unchanged, birthday gifts wrapped and waiting on his desk each year. Their marriage, strained by grief and the different ways they processed it, somehow held together, united by the common purpose of keeping their son's case alive in public memory. Until one morning in December 2023, when everything changed again. If you're still with us, it's because you're just as haunted by Noah's story as we are. One moment, a boy waves it by, familiar streets, broad daylight, and then silence. Before we continue, take a second to subscribe and turn on notifications. Here at Gone Cold, we investigate the stories others let fade. Your subscription helps keep these cases alive, and these families supported through the power of remembrance. And if you believe that no child should ever disappear without answers, click the like button right now. It helps us reach more people who care. December 3rd, 2023, Rachel Winters woke to the sound of her dog barking. Not the usual alert bark he gave when the mail carrier arrived, but a persistent, anxious sound that suggested something unusual was happening. Pulling her robe tight against the winter chill, She peered through the front window of her small bungalow on Cedar Avenue, a quiet street on the opposite side of Riverview from where the Bennetts lived. Dusty, her golden retriever, was standing rigid on the porch, hackles raised, barking at something Rachel couldn't see from her angle. She opened the door cautiously. "Dusty, what is it?" The dog moved aside, revealing what had disturbed him. On the corner of the porch lay a backpack, red with a Pittsburgh Steelers logo, dirty and weathered, but otherwise intact. Rachel frowned. She lived alone, had no children or young relatives who might have left a backpack behind. The nearest school was Oak Ridge Elementary, not Maple Street where her nieces attended. Something about the backpack triggered a memory, but she couldn't immediately place it. She called Dusty inside and, using a pen from her pocket, carefully flipped open the main compartment of the bag. Inside were school books, a pencil case, a lunch container, and a small notebook. Everything was surprisingly well preserved, as if the bag had been stored somewhere protected from the elements rather than exposed for a long period. Rachel's hand froze when she saw the name written inside the front cover of the science textbook, Noah Bennett. Everyone in Riverview knew that name. The boy who had disappeared 6 years ago while walking home from school. The case that had changed how the town thought about safety. The family whose pain had been a constant presence in community consciousness. With trembling fingers, Rachel called the police. Detective Marcus Reyes, now a lieutenant, arrived within 15 minutes, though he had worked dozens of cases in the 6 years since Noah's disappearance. This one had never stopped haunting him. He had kept in regular contact with the Bennetts, even after the official investigation went cold. He had attended the annual vigils, had followed up on every tip, no matter how implausible. "Don't touch anything else," he instructed Rachel, pulling on latex gloves before carefully examining the backpack. "How did you find it?" "It was just there. When I woke up this morning, my dog was barking at it." Rachel hugged herself against the cold. "I don't understand. Why would someone leave it on my porch? I didn't even know Noah." "That's what we need to figure out," Reyes said, his voice tight with controlled emotion. The backpack looked remarkably like it had in the photos the Bennetts had provided years ago, except for the layer of dust and grime that suggested prolonged storage. "Did you notice anyone unusual in the neighborhood lately? Any strange vehicles or individuals?" Rachel shook her head. "Nothing. I work from home as a graphic designer, so I'm here most days. It's been completely normal." Reyes nodded, carefully placing the backpack in an evidence bag. "We'll need to process this for DNA and fingerprints, and I'll have officers canvass the neighborhood, check for any security camera footage." "Do you think—" Rachel hesitated. "Does this mean you might find him?" Reyes' expression revealed nothing. In his 23 years of police work, he had learned to temper hope with realism. "It means we have new evidence in an active investigation. I can't speculate beyond that." But as he drove back to the station, the backpack secure in his trunk, Reyes' mind raced with possibilities. Why now after 6 years? Why leave the backpack on a random porch rather than at the police station or the Bennett home? And most importantly, was this a taunt from whoever had taken Noah or a clue deliberately left to be found? The forensics team worked meticulously, processing every inch of the backpack and its contents. By evening, they had preliminary results. "We got multiple fingerprints," the lead technician reported. "Most match the samples we have on file for Noah and his parents from the original investigation. But there's one partial print on the inside zipper pocket that doesn't match anyone in the system." "What about DNA?" Reyes asked. "Hair samples consistent with Noah's profile. A few other fibers we're still analyzing. But here's the interesting part. The preservation of the material suggests the backpack wasn't exposed to the elements. It was stored somewhere climate-controlled for most of the past 6 years." Reyes nodded slowly, the implication sinking in. Someone had kept the backpack, preserved it, and then deliberately placed it to be found. This wasn't a random discovery or coincidence. It was a message. But from whom? And why Rachel Winters, a woman with no apparent connection to the case? Before informing the Bennetts, Reyes dug deeper into Rachel's background. 34 years old, lived in Riverview her entire life. No criminal record. No known connections to the Bennett family or to Maple Street Elementary. Her closest tie to the case appeared to be that her sister's children attended the same school Noah had, but they had enrolled years after his disappearance. By nightfall, Reyes had made the call he'd been both anticipating and dreading. Angela and David Bennett deserved to know their son's backpack had resurfaced. "We found Noah's backpack," he told them, sitting in their living room where, even after 6 years, a photo of Noah still held a central place on the mantel. It was left on a resident's porch across town. "We're processing it for evidence now." Angela's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with a hope she'd never fully relinquished. David sat completely still, as if movement might shatter this fragile moment. "What does it mean?" Angela finally whispered. Did someone... "We don't know yet," Reyes said gently. "But it's the first significant lead we've had in years, and I promise you, we're going to follow it wherever it leads." What he didn't tell them was the detail that disturbed him most. Inside the lunch container in the backpack was a sandwich, still preserved after all these years, with a bite taken out of it, as if Noah had started his lunch, then been interrupted, or as if someone wanted to create that impression. The backpack wasn't just evidence. It was a deliberate communication, and Reyes couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Chapter 3. The connection. Rachel Winters couldn't sleep. After the police had left, taking the backpack with them, she had tried to return to her normal routine, answering client emails, walking dusty, preparing dinner. But her mind kept circling back to the red backpack and its impossible appearance on her porch. Why her? She had no connection to Noah Bennett or his family. She hadn't even lived on Cedar Avenue when Noah disappeared. She'd purchased a bungalow just 3 years ago after her divorce. Around midnight, unable to quiet her thoughts, Rachel began searching online for information about Noah's case. Though she knew the basic story, as did everyone in Riverview, she had never followed it closely. Now she found herself scrolling through news articles, the Foundation website, and social media groups dedicated to finding Noah. One detail caught her attention. A comment on a 6-year-old news article from someone claiming to have seen a boy matching Noah's description getting into a dark-colored sedan near the corner of Hawthorne and Birch Lane. Police had investigated at the time but found the tip unreliable, as no other witnesses corroborated the sighting, and no security cameras had captured such a vehicle. Rachel frowned, something nagging at the edge of her memory. Hawthorne and Birch. Why did that intersection seem significant? Then it hit her. Before buying her current home, she had rented an apartment on Birch Lane, directly across from that corner. She had moved out of that apartment 5 years ago, but she had lived there when Noah disappeared. Could that be the connection? But why would someone leave the backpack now, at her new address, rather than then? And how would they even know where she lived now? Rachel grabbed her phone and called the number Lieutenant Reyes had left her. "I think I might know why the backpack was left at my house," she explained when Reyes called back. "I used to live across from where Noah's scent trail ended, the corner of Hawthorne and Birch. I was living there when he disappeared." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Why didn't you mention this earlier, Ms. Winters?" "I honestly didn't make the connection. I wasn't even thinking about where I lived 6 years ago. And I was never interviewed during the original investigation. I was traveling for work the week Noah disappeared, in Philadelphia at a design conference. I didn't return to Riverview until after the initial searches were over." Reyes asked her to come to the station first thing in the morning to provide a formal statement. Sleep now completely impossible. Rachel spent the rest of the night trying to remember anything unusual from her time living on Birch Lane. Had she ever seen Noah walking home? Had she noticed anything suspicious around the time of his disappearance? But her memory yielded nothing useful. Just ordinary days in a neighborhood she had eventually left for the quieter street where she now lived. The next morning at the police station, Rachel repeated her realization to Reyes and another detective. They took her statement, asked for details about her previous residence and her whereabouts during the week of Noah's disappearance. "Your conference alibi checks out," Reyes confirmed after making some calls. "And we verified you were renting at 156 Birch Lane when Noah disappeared. The question is, how does that connect to someone leaving his backpack on your porch 6 years later? Could it be a neighbor from Birch Lane? the other detective suggested. Someone who knew Ms. Winters then and knows where she lives now. Rachel considered this. My landlord knew, obviously, and I had a few friends over occasionally. Mail gets forwarded, so anyone who sent some at my old address might have learned my new one. We'll need a list of everyone who might have known both addresses, Reyes said, and we'll need to revisit that corner. If Noah's trail ended there, and you lived right across the street, the implication hung in the air. Was it possible Noah had been taken to Rachel's old apartment building? Had he been right there, while search parties combed the neighborhood? Meanwhile, the forensics team had completed their analysis of the backpack. The unidentified partial fingerprint remained a mystery, not matching any in the criminal database. The sandwich had been preserved with a chemical substance, suggesting whoever kept the backpack had deliberately maintained its contents. Most concerning was a small note found tucked into an inside pocket, overlooked in the initial examination. Written in block letters on plain white paper was a simple message. Ask her about the red door. When shown the note, Rachel's face paled. The red door, she repeated. My apartment on Birch Lane. It had a red door. It was the only one in the building painted that color. That's how I used to give directions to visitors. Reyes leaned forward. Who would know about that red door, Ms. Winters? Who would connect it to Noah Bennett? I don't know, Rachel said, her voice barely above a whisper. But whoever left this backpack is trying to tell you something about where I used to live, about what might have happened to Noah. For the first time in 6 years, Reyes felt the investigation shifting from cold to active. The backpack wasn't just evidence. It was a deliberate breadcrumb, leading them back to the last place Noah had been seen, back to a building with a red door where Rachel Winters had once lived and where answers might finally be found. But as the investigation refocused on the apartment building on Birch Lane, neither Reyes nor Rachel realized how dangerous asking questions about the red door would prove to be, or how close they were to uncovering the truth about what happened to Noah Bennett on that October afternoon 6 years ago. Boy vanished after walking home. 6 years later, his backpack appears on a stranger's porch chapter 4. The red door of the apartment building on Birch Lane had been renovated. New windows, fresh landscaping, and doors repainted beige. All except one. They kept it red, Rachel said, pointing to the door of her former apartment. 2B. Lieutenant Reyes obtained a warrant to investigate. The current tenant knew nothing about Noah or the door's significance. Building records showed a specific instruction to keep the 2B door red, added in November 2017, 1 month after Noah disappeared. Who requested this? Reyes asked the property manager. The owner, Edwin Carlton. He's had the building since the 90s. The team interviewed everyone connected to the building. No one remembered seeing Noah. No one could explain the red door beyond. That's how it's always been. That evening, forensics called with news. The partial print from a backpack matches samples from the inside of the red door. They're older prints, possibly left before the door was last painted. The connection was clear. Whoever had touched Noah's backpack had also touched that red door. The backpack hadn't randomly appeared. It was deliberately placed to lead investigators to the apartment. We need to speak with Edwin Carlton, Reyes told his team. Immediately. Chapter 5. The owner Edwin Carlton's estate sat on the edge of Riverview. At 73, he was semi-retired, having built a real estate empire throughout the county. This is about the Bennett boy, he asked when Reyes arrived. Terrible business. I've contributed to the foundation every year. We've discovered evidence connecting to your property on Birch Lane, specifically apartment 2B with the red door. You personally instructed that door remain red. A quirk of mine. The red door is distinctive. This requirement was added in November 2017, 1 month after Noah disappeared, and his scent trail ended directly across from your building. Carlton stiffened. Are you implying something? Noah's backpack has fingerprints matching those on that red door. Can you explain? Certainly not. I haven't been inside that building in years. Carlton maintained his composure throughout questioning. He agreed to provide his calendar and phone records from 2017, even offering fingerprints. His alibi checked out. He had been in Philadelphia for a real estate conference when Noah disappeared. The same conference Rachel Winters had attended. Carlton and Rachel were at the same conference. Reyes realized. A call to Rachel confirmed it. I remember seeing him there. We were introduced briefly since he owned my building. As the team investigated everyone with access to the apartment during Rachel's absence, forensics called again. We've identified another set of prints from a backpack. They belong to Walter Simmons. Walter Simmons had been the maintenance supervisor for Riverview Properties in 2017. He had left the company abruptly in November, right when the instruction about the red door was added. Chapter 6. The maintenance man Walter Simmons now lived outside Pittsburgh. When Reyes arrived, Simmons appeared unsurprised. "Figured someone would come eventually," he said, letting them in. "You know why we're here," Reyes stated. "The Bennett boy and the backpack. You left it on Rachel Winters' porch." "Yes." The direct admission startled Reyes. "Why? And why now after 6 years? I should have come forward back then. But Carlton has influence in Riverview. He made it clear what would happen if I spoke up." Simmons explained that he had seen Noah being taken into apartment 2B by Jason Mercer, Carlton's nephew and the property manager at the time. The boy didn't seem scared, more confused. Why would Mercer take Noah there? Because Rachel was away. He knew her schedule. He had access to all apartments. The next day, Simmons had checked the apartment and found Noah's backpack hidden in a closet. When Mercer caught him leaving, he threatened Simmons. "I took his money," Simmons admitted. "Let him think I'd given him the real backpack, but I'd already hidden it. He gave me a different one to hand over. And the red door?" After everything quieted down, Carlton had all doors repainted except 2B. Mercer said it was to remind me what would happen if I talked. Why come forward now? Because Carlton is dying. Cancer. I figured with him gone, Mercer wouldn't have the same protection. As Simmons gave a statement, Reyes learned troubling news. Jason Mercer had fled town 3 days earlier, right after the backpack was found. "What about Noah?" Reyes asked. "Did Mercer tell you what happened?" "Only that I should forget I ever saw the boy. That some things were better left buried. They were closer than ever to the truth, but the most critical question remained. Was Noah still alive? And if not, where had Jason Mercer buried his secrets? Boy vanished after walking home. 6 years later, his backpack appears on A Stranger's Porch, Chapter 7. The pursuit, the manhunt for Jason Mercer expanded across state lines. His photo appeared on news broadcasts and social media. Credit card records showed he had driven west, making purchases in Ohio and Indiana before his trail went cold. A nationwide BOLO alert was issued. Meanwhile, investigators obtained a search warrant for Carlton's estate. The elderly man, visibly weakened by cancer treatments, watched from his wheelchair as officers combed through his study. "My nephew acted alone," he insisted to Reyes. "I knew nothing about the Bennett boy. Yet you specifically ordered the red door to remain unchanged," Reyes countered. "Why?" Carlton's facade finally cracked. "Jason told me he'd done something foolish, that the door was connected. I protected him, a terrible mistake. But I never knew exactly what happened. In the desk drawer, officers found a key labeled Lake House. Property records revealed Carlton owned a remote cabin on Lake Milton, 2 hours away, a location not included in his official statements. When confronted, Carlton's shoulders sagged. "It's been in the family for generations. Jason used it occasionally. I haven't been there in years." Within the hour, a tactical team surrounded the cabin. They found Jason Mercer's car hidden under a tarp behind the structure. Inside, the cabin was empty but showed signs of recent occupation. Food in the refrigerator, muddy boots by the door. As officers secured the property, a detective noticed freshly disturbed earth near the lakeshore. What they uncovered confirmed their worst fears. Human remains, consistent with a child of Noah's age. "I'm so sorry," Reyes told the Bennetts later that night. The DNA results wouldn't be available for days, but the clothing fragments and a Steeler's keychain found with the remains left little doubt. Angela Bennett collapsed into her ex-husband's arms. "What happened to him?" she asked when she could speak again. Based on Simmons' statement and evidence from the cabin, we believe Mercer approached Noah that day, claiming to be a friend of yours. He took Noah to Rachel's apartment, intending to hold him temporarily, possibly for ransom, though no demand was ever made. But something went wrong, David Bennett said, his voice hollow. Reyes nodded grimly. From what we can piece together, Noah realized something wasn't right and tried to leave. There was a struggle. Mercer panicked and... He couldn't finish the sentence. And my son died alone, scared with a stranger, Angela whispered. The next morning, as rain fell over Riverview, officers stationed at the lake house spotted a figure emerging from the woods. Jason Mercer, disheveled and exhausted, surrendered without resistance. Chapter 8. The closure Jason Mercer confession filled in the final pieces of the 6-year mystery. Facing mounting gambling debts, he had impulsively decided to kidnap a child for ransom. Noah had been a target of opportunity, a boy walking alone whom Mercer recognized from his neighborhood. Using his position as property manager, he had chosen Rachel's apartment because she was away at the conference. The plan had fallen apart when Noah, initially trusting, became suspicious and tried to escape. In the ensuing struggle, Noah had hit his head on the corner of a table. Panicked, Mercer had kept the boy's body hidden until nightfall, then transported it to the lake house. I never meant for anyone to die, he told investigators, though his words rang hollow against the magnitude of his actions. The discovery of Noah's remains and Mercer's arrest made national headlines. In Riverview, the community that had spent 6 years wondering about Noah Bennett's fate finally had answers, however painful. 1 year later, a memorial garden was dedicated in Riverside Park, featuring a bronze statue of a boy with a backpack. The plaque read simply, Noah Bennett, 2005 to 2017. Always remembered, forever loved. Rachel Winters attended the dedication ceremony, standing quietly at the back of the crowd. Though initially devastated by her unwitting connection to the tragedy, she found some peace in knowing the truth. Her testimony had been instrumental in Mercer's conviction and life sentence. After the ceremony, Angela Bennett approached her. I wanted to thank you, she said, surprising Rachel. If that backpack hadn't appeared on your porch, we might never have known what happened to Noah. I wish I could have done more, Rachel replied. Sometimes I wonder if there was something I should have noticed back then. Angela shook her head. You were as much a victim of circumstance as we were. Mercer used your apartment because you weren't there. None of this was your fault. The two women stood in silence for a moment, connected by a tragedy neither had chosen but both had helped resolve. Later that day, Lieutenant Reyes visited Noah's grave. He placed a small Steelers figurine beside the headstone, a personal gesture for a case that had haunted him for years. We found you, Noah, he said quietly. We brought you home. As he walked back to his car, Reyes noticed a red backpack on the ground beside a bench, forgotten by a visitor. Perhaps, for a brief moment, the sight sent a jolt through him. Then he picked it up and carried it to the cemetery office to be placed in lost and found. Some backpacks were just backpacks, after all, and some mysteries, however long they took to solve, eventually found their resolution. In the years that followed, the Bennett case became required study at the police academy. The story of a boy who vanished after walking home, a backpack that appeared 6 years later, and a red door that finally revealed the truth served as a powerful reminder that no case was ever truly cold as long as someone remembered to keep looking. Noah Bennett's disappearance reminds us that sometimes even the most ordinary days can hide the darkest turns. A trusted path, a familiar face, and then nothing. But his story doesn't end there. What happened in December 2023 may finally reveal the truth. If this case touched you, please watch this video now. It expands our reach and helps ensure Noah's name is never forgotten. Now, we want to hear your thoughts. Left Speech Bubble, what do you think happened on that walk home? Left Speech Bubble, have you ever questioned your city's sense of security after hearing a story like this? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your input can help shed light on where it's most needed. We feature featured commentary every week and read each one personally. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Gone Cold.